Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I've been doing my research lately on the Western Desert, right? Many of you know, a week ago I asked you to vote. Today is the last day to vote whether or not I decide to build in Western Desert themed Africa Corps or Western Desert themed British. So I've been opening this book and I've been doing some studying. I'm going to talk about a couple things I found that was interesting in there, right? But I also want to talk about something else too. Picked this up from my local hobby shop. He gave it to me, right? It says $1.50 on it, he gave it to me, right? It says $2.50 on it. But inside, there's all types of artistic renderings and the miniatures themselves, right? Some very much Western Desert, some painted more to the France, early war phase, right? Brilliant collection, right? It shows everything available, right, up until the time it was printed, I guess, and a few of the upcoming releases at the time, which are now current. But it's a great reference, right? Great reference. And then in the back, there's some recommendations for basing, right? And your colors. So if you're just getting into the hobby, it's a great resource. The guy gave it to me for free, right? I think they actually ship out with a bunch of orders originally. I'm not too sure about that, but they're there, right? We'll get into the book, right? So, a whole bunch of things I wanted to cover here. Interesting read, right? So, played a lot of tournaments. Not so much themed campaigns and stuff like that, personally. Not my thing. I kind of like the fast-paced versus the reenacting history and stuff like that. But I've been in a few. 19 never-before-seen campaigns. All right, scenarios for you to do, right? 19 of them. You can run as a complete campaign. Some are very specific to the nations that they participate in, and they all have a set of special rules, or something that makes the scenario a little different. Plus, not only that, but the setup, the type of force selectors you get, things like every one of them has a little something that makes it special. Well worth the read. Well worth the read. If you're gonna hold like a Western Desert-based tournament, definitely line it on, right? Or run maybe a slow grow campaign in your local shop. Start with 300, 400, 500 points. Pick it up a little from there and go through the 19 scenarios, or find 10 that work or 6 that work or whatever you want to do for that, right? And then we're gonna roll in, right? There's a whole bunch of conversation about this recon group for the German army. Get up to 5 vehicles in the recon group. A lot of people's feelings are that it's individual vehicles, because how else would you react to whatever, right? So personally, I send my request up to higher headquarters, right? Those are the right rules, and we're going to ask them. But there's only for play in the Africa list. It clearly identifies that, right? And then there's one list that allows you to take 2 of these Africa groups. So this opens up to where we could be serious dice counts here. So for 360 points, I could be rolling 10 dice of highly mobile MG Kugel wagons with some riflemen rolling around, popping rounds out everywhere, right? But I think the intent personally is just like when we did the errata and you were able to get 2 Bren guns for the British to transport 1 squad, because you couldn't fit a full 10-man squad in a Bren, right? So they said that now they act as you purchase them, but they act as a single order die for purposes of being shot at and given orders and stuff like that. And just like any weapon system, they're allowed to target separately. So I think that's where this is going. But don't quote me. As soon as I know, I'll send my request up. As soon as I know, I'll let you know, right? But 10 dice for 360 points. Anybody who plays competitively, that'll break every list out there, right? You just take these guys and put them behind trees and have your heavy hitters go out there, and you're going to have control of the whole battle. So more likely, it's 2 groups operating on 1 die each. That would be the most, in my eyes. But once I get the answer, I'll give it to you. And I'm sure we're going to have to go with the 6 inches in between vehicles, distance rules, stuff like that, right? And then, where do we want to go next, right? So these lists. A couple of those lists say Western Desert campaign only, right? But they're great. So there's a couple German lists in here that allow you to go 3 tanks deep There's cool that you get 2 artillery pieces and artillery pieces with an armored car, right? So we're talking 4 pieces of heavy armor rolling across the board. It kind of helps balance out some of those other theater-specific lists where, like, in previous books, the Soviets can get 2 tanks in a list. The Hungarians can get 2 tanks in a list. There's a couple of Japanese lists where you can get a self-propelled gun and a little tankette, right? But even though it's a tankette, it's still armor all around and stuff. So very interesting. But it also, see if I can find it real quick, allows for a list that it lets you field captured vehicles, right? So this is now in the Italians. But you could potentially run 3 British tanks or 3 Stugs, is what the breakdown is, and that's a mess for your opponent, right? So, and I'm pretty sure the British like tanks, but it's like their desert warfare group, right? So it's Free French. We're also gonna get Free French, and they have so many unique special rules for the Free French. It's worth getting into, right? And they have this cool little car that I'm getting just to model, right? I don't even play French. I'm ordering one just because I have to have one. I just have to have one, right? And then Commonwealth Special Forces, right? Hit and run tactics special rule, deflate the tire special rule, get increased mobility, right? And they're already wheeled, then they get increased mobility. Obviously, they get the Desert Fighter rules and then all the cool trucks with everything from a pile of machine guns, both MMGs, LMGs, HMGs, to anti-tank weapons, right? And then Italian Desert Raiders with special rules, good special rules, right? Oh, and there's a aggressive Italian list in here too, symbolic of the beginning of the Western Desert, where there were a few really unique armored forces out there, and the morale maybe wasn't so much crushed by the time this takes place. So very, very potential for the Italian players here. A whole bunch of heroes. Me personally, I never played with heroes, special characters. But in themed events, I can very much see where you're trying to progress that person across. Maybe tracking, their victories and defeats and stuff. But then we get into the end of the book, which I think has massive unique potential, right? And there's a couple campaign books that do this. The first portion of this is breakdown of terrain, right? So it's going to talk about sand dunes and how it affects movement, depressions and how it affects movement, and factors of combat, wadis, soft sand, boulder fields, buildings, because they're not like Western Europe buildings, right? Made of different materials. Roads and tracks, because again, it's not paved roads like we would be used to, not everywhere. So very, very interesting, right? And then climate effects. Freezing cold at night in the desert. So all day long they're hot, they get dehydrated, and then freezing cold. Tournament-based, campaign-based, scenario-based, this could have huge play in your ability for your army to actually listen and follow the commands that you're trying to tell them to do. Sand, the unreliable factors, which in the desert, I mean, the wear and tear on these vehicles is insane, right? Then it busts into environmental factors, and then weather effects. And there's this awesome little chart, which I'm gonna do some field testing, tied into the next tournament I run, and we're gonna run it per round of the tournament, right? Probably a 3-round tournament we run, right? But we'll try. We'll see what we can do, and we'll go from there. But it's a game changer. Like, people's lists will be changed. We're talking about defenses, foxholes, minefields, dug-in versus tanks, how to clear minefields dismounted, how engineers clear minefields, how we shoot HE into a minefield to potentially clear a couple mines. I mean, come on. Firing an HE round into a minefield. It's new. It's worth getting the book to see what's in. You can check it out. You can order online. You can swing by your local hobby shop, place an order, grab it off the shelf. You want this book. Have a good day.